So, again, smart technologies and the synergy between innovation and opportunity, which is shaping the future of automation. We discuss in the industrial electronics and automation in India, synergizing growth and opportunities panel discussion. Over to our moderator.
Thank you so much. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this event. I have a very hard task of following Pankajji after such a lively session. I hope me and my panel will do justice to your time. Uh, Today, we are going to discuss this topic of industrial electronics and automation and what needs to be done for the sector going forward. Now, before we start the panel discussion, for the sake of the audience and for everybody in the panel, I would like to briefly walk you all through in terms of what this whole sector is all about, because this is one of the least talked about sector in India. When we within electronics sector as such, industrial electronics and industrial automation is one subject which is not often spoken of, like we talk of mobiles and consumer electronics, defense, etc. So I thought it is better to bring clarity to everyone about this sector. Can I use the podium for that? Hello. Yeah. Uh, Use industrial electronics. The reason why I'm putting up this 2 3 slider deck is essentially to show to everyone the vastness of what is included here, uh, in terms of what this industrial electronics is. And it is not a small sector. It is one of the big sectors which accounts for close to 15 20% of the overall electronic sector in India. So it is important for us, all of us, to understand this. Can we move to the next slide, please? Yeah, if you see, in India, about we make about $115 billion of uh, electronics manufacturing in India happens. And when we talk of industrial electronics, we are talking of close to 18 to 20% of this production is technically falling under the category of industrial electronics. And industrial electronics includes a whole range of products, which I'm going to walk you through in the next 2 3 slides. It includes everything from factory automation, auto electronics, medical electronics, telecom electronics, grid electronics, everything. So it is often clubbed together, and that is the reason why we are talking today, to bring some focus to this sector. Yes, please. Next. The next 2 3 slides, I'm just running through. Just glance at the big the numbers here. Don't go into individual line items. It includes a whole range of products and services when we talk of industrial electronics and automation. The reason why so many things are clubbed under industrial is another story in itself. We'll talk about that later. So it essentially starts with the whole range of factory automation products, which is drives, PLCs, control and safety systems, robos, industrial computers and monitors, drives and automatic, and other key units. Next slide, please. Then there is a whole range of auto electronics which is included, which is essentially powertrains, your chassis and safety. Today's, you see the cars outside there, most of them, and we have Ritesh from Bosch who will talk more about what goes inside a car today. So there's a whole range of electronics which goes in today's cars. Next slide, please. And then you have the other segments such as measurement and instrumentation sectors. You have motor controls, and then you have all the smart meterings which is happening today. And apart from this, next slide, please. You have a whole range of, it is technically all the other electronics which doesn't go in any other sectors. They are essentially clubbed together in industrial electronics. And that is the reason why there is, because of this huge diversity, uh, there is not enough focus given to this sector as such, because there is not any one entity which is actually driving this sector in India. And that's the reason why ICEA has taken this lead to bring clarity to the sector, to bring the sector to the forefront. Because as we discussed in the previous session, there is going to be an increased manufacturing in India. There's a focus on manufacturing. And when there is a focus on manufacturing, most of this industrial electronics and factory automation products will gain prominence. And it is important to address this sector as such. One last slide, and then I'll get on to the panel discussion. Just to give you all an idea, we are talking of nearly a $1.2 trillion industry worldwide. Next slide, please. And in India, it's close to about $49 billion is the market currently, which is likely to become about $140 billion by 2030. And this $1.2 trillion global market is likely to become 2 trillion global market. So we are in terms of consumption, yes, there is decent consumption in India, but I'm sure with increased manufacturing and increased automation, this is bound to grow. Thank you so much. Now, coming to the discussion here, the idea is the reason why I had to depend on those slides is to one is set out that there is a vast variety and the diversity of products which we are talking of, and then that's where the focus gets lost. So uh, I have a very august panel here, and before I come to this panel, just on a lighter note, the previous panel you had a set of domestic champs, domestic champions sitting here. In this panel, you will notice that this sector of industrial electronics, all the major global companies are present in India. And this panel is also a representation of that. All of them are MNC firms having long presence in India. And that's one other characteristics of this whole industrial electronics sector. There are companies with long-standing presence in India. We have access to products, to technology, and other things. So, how do we get this sector to make in India more? I think that's the question we are all trying to understand. I'll start with Dilip ji. Uh, First of all, could you introduce yourself, talk more about your firm, what you do in India before we come to the industrial electronics sector and what can be done there?
Sure. So thank you so much, Devendra. And thanks also for the very nice summary that you provided to us. And it really demonstrated the vastness of what is categorized as industrial electronics. Rockwell Automation, we've been present in India formally, like as in having a legal entity and presence on the ground for 42 years now, so 83 onwards. But we were engaged even prior to that in terms of our activities in supporting the Indian customers. It's a mature industry because manufacturing plants and factories have been using some form of automation for a long period of time. That was the industry 3.0, which isn't much spoken about. Specifically about our own presence, we're 120 years globally, 40 years, like I said, here in India. What we do is a vast array of things that were mentioned over there. Specifically, our presence here, we have about 4,500 people here. We've got presence in around 17 locations across India and major clusters, NCR, western part of the country in Pune, south in Bangalore, and also in Chennai. We're currently building two factories in Chennai. The first one will have start of production happening anytime in the next 100 days or so. So lots of activities going on. Um, we've been doing a lot of our global design activities for a long period of time now, close to about 12 plus years through a Bangalore design center. And one thing which I thought I'll mention before I wrap up is for specific industries, in particular automotive, tire, and discrete industries, and then for life sciences, pharmaceuticals, two very large sectors here. Uh, and then also for consumer industries, we've got three centers of excellence, which are global centers of excellence, that are hosted from India for the world. So some of you who are familiar with manufacturing execution systems, we have about 500 people across India who exclusively work on that.
Thank you, Dilipji. That was, I'll come back to you more with specific questions on what can be done in the sector. Sri Kumarji, if I can come to you next. You represent one of the oldest MNCs in India, if I can say
Yes,
that, having more than 100 years of presence in India, Siemens.
more than 175.
Wow, more than 175 years in India and having wide presence of manufacturing. I would have visited some 4 or 5 unit of yours in India, not more. So, could you start with your presence in this whole sector of industrial automation and electronics? How are you present here in India? What's your spread?
Yeah, I mean, like many other global corporations, Siemens is also present in multiple areas, but we have a substantial presence in terms of making in India. We have around 20 odd factories all over India, including a couple of electronic manufacturing facilities. The largest one being in Goa, where we produce uh, electronic automation, protection and automation products for the grid. We also have, like Mr. Sani said, large global competence centers which work for the entire world. The factory also, what we have is producing for the world. The products are produced in India for the world, and many times I would, in order to create an impact, I would normally tell people, do you know, we supply electronics from India to China. Yeah. So we were a supplier to of products from electronic products from India to China, and that is something which I always found cuts across people in India, that we could actually do it, and that is where we are. We are
Fantastic.
present in mainly in industrial automation and also infrastructure automation. We also are in mobility, in large rail systems and all, besides Siemens' presence in energy and healthcare as an entity. Yeah, that's what Siemens
Fantastic.
is.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's a nice setting up of where does Siemens come from when related to this topic. Ritesh ji, if I can come to you, you represent Bosch, one of the again one of the long-standing companies in India. And could you speak about your presence in India, specifically in the auto electronic sector, please?
Hello. Yeah. So, first of all, very good afternoon and very good evening to all of you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me here in this electronics ambience. So, we are 102 years old. We just celebrated 100 years in 2022. 1922, we opened the first opening the sales office in Calcutta. Many of us remember more as a Micro than Bosch those days. In 2008, we moved to Bosch Limited company. Multiple diversified business. Bosch in India has grown with Bosch global perspective. We work as a family. There's a lot of intercontinental collaboration in the ecosystem. But let's first talk about India because the topic is India. We are 17 manufacturing plant, 7 innovation centers with 80. Rest contribution come from engineering services, which is the only one important unit in India. We in India, which is launched in the rest of the world. So this engineering services is also a very important portfolio beside the product industry. What is also important to know is where I come from as a person. I'm in Bosch for last 20 years, although in automobile industry for last 26 years. I have worked in different industries. Today I'm heading the only Bosch electronics plant in Bangalore. We are 4,000 crore company. We opened 15 years back. We started with electronic control units, almost to every OEM automobile we supply. I would say the second segment we started moving into the from the electronic engine management to the brake systems, ABS, and now we are preparing for EV. So this is where we are coming from, and we are looking positive for this community because I have a very diversified input, but very focused input for automobile electronics. Yeah, where we were going to talk in detail
Sure.
going forward. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll just come to you on that. Manish ji, if you can speak about Delta and your experience in India, you have been your presence in India, etc.
Thank you, Dev, and thanks for having me here. And good evening, everyone. My name is Manish Walia, representing Delta Electronics, and we're the youngest of the lot here. We are about 2 decades plus in India. Started our operations in India in 2003. We represent four major business categories. Starting with power electronics, which is the backbone. Mobility is one business category for us. Automation, we're in industrial and building, and of course, We have the infrastructure, right from the telecom and the energy infrastructure area. So we are present all across India, close to about 20 odd offices, locations, very close to the industrial clusters. And we have three factories in India, pretty large factory in down south, Krishnagiri, uh, including one of the very large R&D setup in Bangalore, where we're going to house more than 2,000 engineers. Plus, Krishnagiri is going to be it's a global factory, and it's the one which is going to be for the world. So we are going to be exporting to many countries outside India, which we already are doing at this point in time. And yeah, I'm glad to be here and then participating in this.
Thank you, Manish. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
And Manishji, if you can talk about FANUC in India and introduce your firm to the audience, and then we'll come to the industry.
Yeah, thank you, Devendraji, and thank you for having me here. I am astonished to see this nice comprehensive summary for the industrial electronics and the too many diversified segments which it is covering. And coming to FANUC, FANUC came to India in 1992 when it was not considered fashionable to come to India. So this was the period when the manufacturing was emerging, and FANUC has a big role to play in the manufacturing domain and known mostly for its controls and robots. We are also into machines, basically. So these machines are like the compact machining centers or the CNC wire cuts or the injection molding machines for making precise plastic parts. So these are basically the verticals which FANUC is operating in, while the fundamental product remains the CNC. The applied products are the robots as well as the machines. We are headquartered at Bangalore. We are having around five technical centers or say experience centers throughout the country. And we are having around 22 offices across India. And also we are serving the Southeast Asian countries also from here. And I mean, the way manufacturing industry is growing, FANUC is poised to provide great support to this entire value chain. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, now coming to the sector as such, Dilipji, again, if I can start with you, what is your sense of uh, how much of industrial electronics is actually made in the country and how much is imported? Do you have any sense in terms of where we are good at, where we may not be good at making in India?
Well, precise numbers is right up your alley, right? So I'm not going to comment to that. And the other thing is just the sheer diffuse nature of this industry. I don't think any one of us would have such a comprehensive view
Absolutely.
as you presented. So I'll answer in two parts. The first thing is just over the last 1 decade, we witnessed a very sharp uptick in terms of the willingness of players who've been participating in the Indian market opportunity for them to begin to localize here. So that is for sure happening.
Mm.
There are many reasons for that, right? In manufacturing is taking off in India for good. It's not easy, that growth journey, but it is happening for sure. We are all seeing that, right? And for us to begin to localize our value chains becomes very important for us as businesses. So that is clearly happening, right? There are within the various categories that you had summarized, right? There are some which have been easier to localize, but then there's some other parts, right, which are very high value, very low volume,
Yeah.
right? Uh, those categories, I think, will take a longer time period for them to get localized over here. But you know, we'll reach a tipping point where all of those things become much more easier. Later in our conversation, we can talk about what some of the headwinds are, what some of the reasons are, which uh, present some challenges or hurdles
Sure.
which we as an industry need to overcome, right? But that would be if I had to put a ballpark figure, my sense is that it might be a 70-30 scenario, 70 being imported and 30
30
being
being made.
made here in India. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Nee, that's a good ballpark to have with, and also gives us the legroom for us to plan for it and make more inroads into that. Thank you so much for that. Shrikumarji, what do you think in terms of where we are currently in terms? I know from not just from a Siemens perspective, but I'm sure you have an overall industry view. And what do you think is holding us back? And which are the areas we might be doing good, and which are the areas where we may need to improve?
Thanks. See, my own experience and my guess is it's difficult to categorize as one segment. Like Mr. Sani also said, the name is in the game is in scale. So if you have volumes which you can produce, then it makes sense to produce. If there's no point producing electronics in pieces, you gain nothing. Yeah. Why? Uh, the, the scale gives you economy. Uh, you need a lot of investment to make a electronic manufacturing setup. Unless you have scale, you gain nothing. So rather than let's say casting the net so wide that we want to capture everything in industrial electronics, I would rather look at that in pockets where we can do extremely well, and that is where we will succeed. So that's how I see, and that is where we have succeeded in places where our own example is we chose some products where we do it right from the beginning. We design it locally, we manufacture it locally, but we sell it globally. So that particular product goes across the world, and that is what we are able to bring scale from. So if you can design and develop products which not only fulfills you customers requirements in India, but also similar customers large part of the world, that can bring scale and that can bring let's say bring economies which can justify such an investment, then only it will stick. Otherwise you can make something for a few months or a few years, it will die down. So that's the way I see it.
Fa- Fair enough. So thank you so much. Ritesh ji, if I can come to you next, and in Bosch being the leader in one of the leaders in auto component sector, and auto industry is one of the big success stories of Make in India. I'm talking the overall sector, and within that, from an auto electronics sector point of view, how much do you think is actually made in the country, and how much of auto electronics are getting imported, and are we reached the necessary scale required to make more in India?
Yeah, so I try to bring it in perspective in two steps here. What we have seen in last 5 years, we have not seen in last 50 years. And any evolution or evolution happens only when crisis happens. So I remember the time of Corona, and those days I was managing all customers, where we have to run the market of India without semiconductor availability. And that's what it taught, that the competition can not only come from demand, competition can also come from supply. And today in the whole world, we don't use semiconductor more than 10% of the requirement for automobile industry, because that's all is dominated by mobile and the other sector. So last 5 years is phenomenal. Yeah. Phenomenal requirement, phenomenal change of mindset of people, both from demand and supply. So coming to the point of automobile electronics as a word got a different identity post 2019. And when we started getting understanding that we cannot make vehicle because we don't have semiconductor parts available. And that's where the need of connection with Tata Electronics and all this foundation started. And Bosch is also one of the partners there. So coming back to the requirement is, I think Sreekumar, Dilip said right. I think it's not even 70-30, it's 80-20. And from the industry point of view, we are only in mechanics. We are just penetrating into PCBs. And in PCBs also, if you talk about what we buy from our suppliers, is only 20% value addition, rest all are imports. So we have to far way to go. But the challenge is not to attack in pockets, to attack in ecosystem. We cannot attack the industry with the pockets. And there the important thing which I would also like to challenge the community around, whether even in government and ministry is talking to ministry. It's very important to connect the ecosystem from demand to supply. Lot of things are being done in demand ecosystem, but a lot of way to go in supply ecosystem. So it's very important. So that's why I'm happy to be here to give my voice from the industry point of view, I am also participating in many global forums. In India, the biggest challenge is to build an ecosystem. And the faster we build, the world is yours. They are looking for China plus one, but that's not only India as an option. There are many more countries fighting for it. So we need a speed. And for speed, you have to develop yourself and your team.
Sure. Thank you. Manish, if I can come to you, I would wish to understand from Delta's point of view, your presence in India. How much has it got to do with the quantum of demand in India, or is it the manufacturing ease and the cost of manufacturing and the design and the other aspects which is available in India, or one of the strengths of India?
Um, from Delta perspective, though we are in many fields here in India, I mean, I'll stick to the industrial electronics. Uh, I would say the last 10 years have been exceptional for most of us in the industry. And then uh, the last 5 years post-COVID have been a dream run for everyone. And it also showed us, the limitations and the bottlenecks on the supply chain, which we definitely need to look at. Though as an organization, people like us, we are investing a lot in India. Commitment of about 500 odd million dollars in the factories, what we are doing, localizing a bit. But then I still echo what Dilip and others have conveyed, 70-30 or 80-20 right now. But then having said that, the ecosystem development is the key. It's just not about we having a factory here, but then we're looking at end to end. We're looking at right from the component stage to the finished good, including the entire, uh, very, very efficient logistics as well. So all said and done, we're looking at all these aspects from the Delta perspective. Right from the R&D, I mean, we're building for India, we're building for the world, and we're collaborating with our different R&D setups across the globe in the US, Europe, Taiwan. And of course, we are also working on the automotive side of it, on the mobility as well as what goes inside a passenger car. So all in all, I would say it's the next 10 years probably are going to be even better. We're looking forward to working more closely with the entire ecosystem, developing it with our partners from Taiwan, developing a lot of the Indian partners, and then I'm sure we are going to see the similar growth in the coming years. And it could be even a double-digit growth, which we have been seeing as an industry close to about high single digit, but then it could definitely be a double digit in the times to come. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Manishji, if I can just come to you and understand FANUC's presence in India in terms of where do you see the strengths of India in terms of manufacturing, and which are those areas where you think we are still lacking when it comes to manufacturing of your products in India, and how much do you
Okay. So when it comes to manufacturing in terms of FANUC, so FANUC is still continuing to follow the same narrow path. The entire manufacturing is going to happen in Japan. But there's a lot of things which are happening towards the value addition. So when it comes to CNC, the customization as per the requirements of the customers is already happening from the last few decades. And products which are specific to the Indian markets, these are being developed and are being provided to the manufacturing industry. This is one way. And coming to the automation field, which is itself is growing in a big way, the product will continue to come from Japan, but the system engineering or the turnkey solution, which is the requirement of the industry, which in itself is a big value addition, this also is being done in India. We have a big team for that. And with the support of that particular team, which we call a system engineering team, I mean, the automation is taking giant steps in the different industries. The sectors which we were initially thinking that it's difficult for them to proceed for automation, they are moving into that direction. That is one. And coming to the industrial electronics segment, if we look at it, we have a big exposure to this particular industry. So with the help of our machines, we are supporting in a big way for the smartphone manufacturing. And the only hitch is that, I mean, still, if you look at the smartphone manufacturing, still we are just covering in India around 15% of the value in the complete assembled mobile phone. the other high value items like the chips or the displays or the camera modules, they still continue to be imported. So this is the area which we need to really look into. And from our side, we are very much there to support the industry in this particular domain also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And okay, I have just one or two more questions, and then I'll open up to the audience. If I can start from that side, and we all take this thing. Can you all name, say, three major problem areas for the sector? Because when I talk to everybody around here, I get a sense that 20-30% is getting made in the country, and the rest is imported. What is holding back uh, Indian companies? Because when I see the companies in other sectors, when we look at, we don't seem to have many companies in India with that required technology, etc. But this is one sector where we have so many global corporations in India. We have so much of R&D work, design work, which is happening in India. So, how do we propel India's manufacturing in industrial electronics going further? What are those top three things which we don't have, which we need to work towards? If we can start with you, sir.
Okay, so I will try to make it quick. So first important thing is to create a demand. We have a demand, but how to crystallize the demand? Yeah. So coming to India is going through evolution. We are moving from okay, my perspective come from automobile. We are moving now from IC to hybrid and hybrid to EV. So the consumer is confused, and how we sell to consumer is up to us. Yeah, even if I talk as a end consumer, I am not sure that should I buy a EV vehicle or should I buy an IC vehicle. And this has been also a lot of lessons learned from the American and European market who wanted to change the emission norms in the next couple of years, but it didn't work out. So we have a lot of lessons learned. So first important thing is to crystallize the demand. The second thing I said, even if we crystallize the demand, we have working on infrastructure, not only on battery management system, but we have to work on infrastructure of creating an ease of business and ease of operations. We need a high power and very clean room kind of facility to run the electronics in India. Now, even for a company like Bosch, we struggle in terms of investment because highly capital intensive. It's not that like mechanics, we put the VMC and CMC and we run the industry. We have to put complete fab, a very high $1 billion investment to get the conversion done. So this is topic number one. Topic number two, we have to work on connected machines. It cannot be done by labor independent. So that means the skill force has to move to the next level. So we have to collaborate with the university well in advance on embedded systems, mechatronics, AI. AI, not general AI, AI application based. So this is the second topic. And the third topic is working with government on ecosystem, not in pockets. Very important is also to work on corporate taxation example. So if I talk about Southeast Asian countries like Vietnam, there's a tax holiday for 3 years. So so we have to remove, it's very difficult for me to assess and comment about it. I fully salute what government is doing, but it's very important to make industry participate there and see to it that we create an ecosystem. Otherwise, those incentives like PLI or what we call in also in a lot of state incentives, the effort of using that money is too high. And very important how we connect the industry together, work together with industry and try to build ease of operations and not only ease of business, both is important for us to do.
Sure, sure. Thank you. Manish ji.
Three important points which I think which needs to be looked into from the different perspectives. One is, I believe the technology transfer has to be adequate if this industry has to move forward. That is number one. Number two is, I believe, the skill set, which many other panelists have also addressed. So this is one important thing which needs to be really deep dived into and which needs to be really worked upon. And third is to build the domestic supply chain in India. If at all we have to cater to such a diversified industrial electronics field. So these are the three important points which I believe needs to be looked upon. Thank you.
Sure.
Got it. Finally. Thanks. I'll just double click on the last point that Manish spoke about. I think, first of all, it is important to understand the distinction between what the previous panel was talking about, which is consumer electronics, really catering to the mass markets. Volumes are totally different. It's a different business model altogether, right? And if you come into our world, it's a very different paradigm because industrial electronics, you saw the diversity, but one of the diversities that did not come up is the sheer number of industries that we serve, from automotive to very process centric industries such as oil and gas, chemicals, very hazardous environments, right? And what it requires is these are mission critical applications, safety applications, right? And what it requires is very specific, standards and compliances that have to be dealt with. And what it also then begins to mean is that the diversity of parts that you have, the number of SKUs, just our organization alone, and we cater to just a fraction of what you saw in Devendra's charts, right? We have what 450,000 SKUs, right? That's a lot of parts, lot of diversity of parts, right? Because you're catering to different industries. You also have to comply with standards for different countries that you operate in, right? So it's a very complex supply chain. So the reason I said I'll pick only one comment, one aspect, which is supplier ecosystem is very critical, right? Unlike the consumer electronics, ours is, relatively speaking, a very high mix, relatively low volume gain, right? And that means to be able to attract those suppliers to set up their base here so that we can begin to localize at a much more rapid pace. That requires a lot of commitment from the entire ecosystem, policymakers and government included. So I'll just restrict myself to that one comment because I think it is very, very critical.
So, just a point to what you said right now, sir, high mix and low volume. Is it possible for a country like India to prioritize certain products which India can make for the world? Is that feasible? I'm not looking at making the entire range, but each firm they can choose their list of priorities for India and then look at making that in terms of volumes.
I think that is the way to go because you can't be all things to all people. You cannot really stretch all of your resources so thin,
Exactly.
right? So you have to gain momentum in some areas. And we are seeing that that is the way industry is beginning to shape, right? But we don't have time to lose. I mean, if India really has to become, we are talking about Viksit Bharat, 30 trillion economy, you got to really go from being sub 4 trillion right now to let's say, 5 and then 10 trillion. Manufacturing has to gallop, right? So that's where my comments were coming from. We need to do things which are transformative. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Your the same question which I'm asking everyone, the three things where we are lacking, where we need to work on to get this Make in India thing happen in India in industrial electronics.
I can tell you some problems. I don't have solutions to tell you. One is, like other gentlemen said, the biggest bottleneck is in supply chain. In industrial electronics, the problem is magnified because we are electronics manufacturing is what we do, but we are not the biggest consumers of suppliers or biggest. Let's say we don't drive the demand for components. So component demand is driven by consumer electronics, whereas the same components are used for in most cases used for industrial electronics. Their fashion changes every 2 years, whereas in an industrial electronic environment, the product which we make has to last for 15 years, 20 years, at least 10 years, which means the difficulty of managing changes in the consumer electronic side is much larger for industrial electronics in terms of keeping uh, stocks, in terms of keeping, uh, let's say, living with end of life of electronic components and all that. So having a solution for managing supply chain is one thing which could help or one problem which need to be solved. The second is to determine where you want to shoot. Uh, I mean, I could guess, let's say if India, to make one guess, India is going to install 500 gigawatt of renewable energy in various forms, and the renewable energy consumes a lot of electronics inside. So if we target one segment like that, or maybe if India wants to run millions of electric vehicles into the market, and we focus on electronics behind it, uh, I mean, that could be another thing which could. The third thing I think is we have a lot of R&D done, but I still have my doubts how much of that R&D is driven by innovation. We have a lot of workbenches, which means our R&D teams are part of global R&D organizations. Most of the times, I mean, the innovative ideas not always come from here. And wherever we succeed are where we have the idea which we generated here, and which by which we are able to solve a problem in a scale many times beyond, much beyond India. So to be able to come with ideas and products which can solve global problems could also be another thing which could, let's say, shift the game. Thank you.
Sure, sure. Thank you. Manishji, what do you think are the top three things which is holding us back?
Um, I'm looking at it a little differently, and then I go back to the slides what you just shared. Uh, Industrial electronics, when we are covering, there's so many vast variety of areas we're looking at: automotive electronics, medical as well. If you really want to grow in a certain segment, there has to be a very laser focused approach by all the stakeholders, including the private corporates, the government of India. And once we have a detailed analysis, that's where we actually start implementing certain uh, good ideas to grow the particular segment. That's one. So I believe industrial electronics has to be differentiated in different compartments. That's the first. Second, of course, I mean, everyone is talking about supply chain, the ecosystem development, which is definitely the key. Wherein, from the electronics perspective, we definitely are lagging, which needs a lot of fast run by all of us. Of course, we're not the only one which are aiming for China plus one. There are a lot of other countries, the Southeast Asian countries, are really working very hard, and they're probably even more nimble than us. So there calls for a lot of work which needs to be done by us. And finally, I would say the skill development and
Sure.
upskilling, and then talking about and then understanding what AI brings to us, the IoT brings to us, and then what is that? We talked about 450,000 SKUs, right? That's a true picture.
Yeah.
And how do we really have a faster transformation in terms of being adaptable and very flexible in terms of manufacturing and bringing it to the customers is going to be the key for our success. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much. I think we are running out of time. Let me come to the audience for maybe one or two questions at the most, if somebody has anything to ask. Yeah, I see one hand going up behind. Yeah, here also.
Hello, good afternoon, gentlemen, and the experts panel there. I have a question in my mind, there is so much fast innovation, development, and added further triggered by artificial intelligence platform also. And I have seen number of technologies are developing in such a short span for automobile sector. How do you think Indian industry can cope with the change and the development in this field?
You didn't- I didn't get the question. If you
Not only a portion of what you were saying, the audio was not entirely clear. I think he was talking about the fast pace of innovation, particularly in automotive industry.
yeah,
And you were wanting to know what is India's response going to be because industry is evolving so rapidly. Ritesh, you want to take that?
Yeah.
yeah,
Automotive.
So see, AI is a very diversified topic, yeah, and we call industry 4.0. If you go into automotive language, which we started 5 years back, AI. We have to be careful with AI glamour word than AI application. Yeah. So typically, it's very glamorous, to hear it out, you need factory of future with all connected vehicle, connected machine. But what is important is how it reduces the effort for consumer and also for the people who are doing the operations. So there is a penetration of AI even in automobile industry, both in the factory and also on the vehicle. So typically from my experience, we in my own factory, we are 5-year-old AI plant where all machines are connected and even the all inspections are done using AI. We don't do it manual. So so it all depends on the business context on which we are talking about. The entire logistics is run by AGVs. We don't run a manual guided vehicle. We are also working on loading unloading pattern using a vehicle, not by manual. So it all depends on the business and scalability are we talking about. So we have to be careful applying those future trends without business case. On the other side, it's an important investment to make, keeping your future mega trends in mind. So this is my brief answer.
Thank you so
as of
much.
now.
Thank you so much, Ritesh. Pankaj, you had raised your hand. Do you want to make a point to somebody here?
So it's very rarely that I'm delighted with myself, but today I am because this is curating. This was long overdue, and I'm very happy and congratulations to the team and Dev that you've put together a very appropriate panel with very deep and wide knowledge. This is a model of how good industrial and workshops should be conducted. Thank you very much. And I think this is just the beginning. We have to pull it together. It is a very diverse segment. Uh, you know, Almost taking your breath away because the number of SKUs, the number of industries we serve, but we have to bring order in that. And I'll appeal to all the leaders here that let's come together and build a tangible strategy. We are doing a report now soon. I think we please participate in that. And then we go to the Prime Minister's office and MIT. And there are other ministries involved in that. Let's pull it together and become a force multiplier so that industrial electronics helps us in the $500 billion in a very major way. And I'm sure it can carry a lot of weight. I've all these companies, the memories are flooding back. I've been to the Delta headquarters about 8 times. I've had lovely meetings with the founder. I've been to Bosch in Germany. Also, I've visited FANUC way back in '87, and it's a wonderful company. Rockwell, we are working with so closely. So it's a lovely panel, Dave. Thank you very much. I'm really delighted. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you to the panelists, and I would like to invite Mr. Pankaj Mahindra to kindly present the mementos. For he, ladies and gentlemen, is not only been the curator of these two sessions and the sessions which flows, but then he himself and his association aspires to make India a global hub for electronics manufacturing and exports. So the best person to be thanking all the stalwarts of the industrial electronics sector. Thanking Mr. Manish Walia. The moderator of the session, Mr. M Devendranath. A gratitude thanks to Mr. N Sreekumar. To Mr. Dilip Sawhney. Thanking Mr. Manish Sharma. And thanks to Mr. Ritesh Sinha. Thank you to Mr. Sinha. And requesting you gentlemen to kindly step forward for a group photograph. So thanking all our panelists here for sharing these, bringing in these key insights and recommendations on this transformational change in the industrial electronics sector, the growth, the way forward for the